Get ready, because today we're going to separate the strong from the weak when it comes to verbs. By the way, my name is Brandon McNulty. I'm the author of Bad Parts, also the author of Entry Wounds, and welcome to my writing channel. This past week I was reading Consider This by Chuck Palahniuk, and he's of course the guy who wrote Fight Club, Choke, and a bunch of other novels. But in this book, Consider This, he discusses his writing career and all the different things he learned along the way, whether they be, little tidbits of advice or full-blown techniques or strategies or whatever it was that helped him develop and grow as a writer. And this book is full of short little sections on different ideas, but one thing that really stood out to me toward the middle of the book was a section on verbs. And he talked about how one time when he was reading a science magazine, he came across this article that explained that certain verbs build a connection between the reader and what they're reading. Like certain verbs have an impact on the mind. And I wanted to talk about this today, and for the purpose of this video, we're going to talk about strong verbs versus weak verbs. The strongest verbs are active physical verbs. He shoved, she kicked, he sneezed, she coughed, he pressed the button, she squeezed the trigger. These types of verbs cause your brain to respond as if you're performing these actions. And this builds a connection between the reader's mind and what they see on the page. So as writers, when we're editing our stories and we're looking over the sentences and saying to ourselves, okay, is this a good sentence or can it be better? Ask yourself, what is the verb doing in here? Is it active? Is it physical? If it can be, try to make it so, because those active physical verbs will punch up your writing. Now, on the other hand, weak verbs don't create that same level of brain activity. And Chuck Palahniuk says there are 3 different categories of these weaker verbs: is verbs, have verbs, and abstract verbs. For some examples of is verbs: the tree is withered, her cheeks are red, their music was loud. For examples of have verbs: the cats have thick fur. He had a look of disgust on his face. He had $1.25 in his pocket. And then with the abstract verbs, these may actually look like good verbs. They might be, fancy words, or they might be strong words, but they don't have an active physical quality to it. They don't make that connection between the reader's mind and what they're seeing on the page. Some examples of this would be want, thought, inquire, believe, love, remember, consider, all those types of verbs. Now I'm going to give you some examples where we take a sentence with a weaker verb and then we replace it to make it stronger. So the first one involves an is verb, and we'll say the music was loud, and then we'll change that to the music pounded my eardrums. That word pounded has a physical active quality to it, and that's a stronger way of writing this sentence. Here's another example. This one includes a have verb. Ken had no appetite. We can switch that over to Ken gagged at the thought of eating. That word gagged makes it a stronger sentence because of that physical active quality. And here's another example, and this is an abstract one. Lisa loved Mark. And we'll switch that to Lisa kissed Mark hard on the mouth. So whenever you include those active physical verbs, it makes the sentence stronger, makes it leap out at you more. And then let's take a look at one last example. It'll include all 3 types of weaker verbs, and then when I rewrite it, it'll have stronger verbs in their place. The witness answered the door. Her cheeks were red, and she had a look of embarrassment on her face. A collie was at her side. A detective introduced himself. Okay, so the verbs in this example, they're not lighting anybody's mind on fire. So let's rewrite this with stronger verbs. The witness pulled back the door. Her cheeks burned with embarrassment as she reached down to scratch her collie behind the ears. A detective smiled and handed her a business card. Okay, so in this rewrite, all the verbs here, they have an active physical quality to it. Pulled back the door, cheeks are burning, reaching down to scratch the collie, smiling and handing her a business card. They all have that active physical quality, and they make this passage much stronger than the original. Now, before I wrap things up, I want to point out that while we do want to use those strong verbs as often as we can, there is a time and a place for weaker verbs. Sometimes the sentence will only sound natural if you use a verb that involves is or have, or it's one of those abstract verbs. So keep that in mind. While you do want to avoid those weaker verbs, a strong verb won't always be what the sentence needs. You have to go sentence by sentence, and you have to pick the best verb for your story. So I hope this helps. Question of the day, be honest. Do you use a lot of weaker verbs in your writing? Let us know in the comments section below. Thank you guys for watching. If you want to support the channel, grab a copy of either one of my novels. Bad Parts is great if you like small town horror. It's about people who trade away their body parts in order to get healthy again. And if you're into thrillers, check out Entry Wounds. It's about a guy who grabs a haunted gun and he cannot drop it until he kills 6 people with it. Also, be sure to check out my other videos, hit the like and subscribe buttons for me, share this video with a friend, and as always, remember to keep on writing.